And here we go. Playing with new sound effects.
And with us today is Bill, Dave, and St. Peter.
I gotta get used. I gotta be quicker. Our producer's not here today. So, and here comes Tool. All right. So we're gonna kind of go a little different than talking about NFL, college, or fantasy football specific, but it is football related. Certainly, the birth of these football shows that you see on your Netflix, your cable networks have become a big deal. So we're followers. We watch. Just got done watching episode Trace of Hard Knocks with the Oakland Raiders. So we want to talk a little about Hard Knocks. We'll talk a little bit about Last Chance U on Netflix, and maybe sprinkle in a little of QB1 Beyond the Lights on Netflix, which season 3 just launched. So where to begin? You want to talk about what we just witnessed on the Hard Knocks?
I will. I think, what's kind of interesting, I will say about these 3 shows, kind of taking a swath of all 3 of them, is you can kind of really tell the difference. Let's talk reality, since we're talking about reality TV. Reality
and
TV.
Keep in mind, I'm not a reality TV. I'm not like the guy that ever liked the American Idols or any of that stuff. So I was always kind of, but
he's wearing a Kelly Clarkson shirt, just so we can be honest.
No, it's the sweet one. This is in our wheelhouse, so I love the football reality shows.
Yeah, I think what's interesting about all of them is you can kind of tell, given the fact that reality TV is not reality. It is a fragment of a reality. It's just the difference between the 3. Like with Hard Knocks, I mean, one, you can tell the NFL has complete control. I mean, you can just think about the rules of Hard Knocks. You are exempt from Hard Knocks if you've made the playoffs. You're exempt from Hard Knocks if you have a first-year coach. I'm not sure if there's any other platform. So it generally, going into every year, lends to about 5 to 8 teams that are available for this, which is where you see these teams get picked. And the interesting part is there is you have to do it. If you are if you fit the criteria, the NFL can select you. That's part of the rule of this. So I guess what that lends to me is there's just a lot more control by the NFL. Whereas, so in that end, I think you get a little bit more. What I'm experiencing, we'll go into this a little bit, is a little bit more of the sunshine. There's some reality, but
yeah.
But you go look at
Last Chance U.
Last Chance U is
the train wreck.
Yeah, let's find all the chaos we can
be
find
honest,
and
we
blow
like
it up.
The disaster.
And with the QB1, I think is the closest you get to reality, in my opinion, in the sense that these are high school players. There is not an agent out there going like, no, you're not going to show my player in that light. And in Hard Knocks today, very interesting to see Drew Rosenhaus, not surprised, but to see him in that episode in a couple of different segments. So the QB1 is a little bit more about telling the story. They have to be very careful to not exploit the kids, but there is some level of exploitation.
You definitely see the type of kid it is, because you see him both on the field, off the field, at home with his family, off the field with his peers, in the classroom. So, and that Last Chance U is like that. It's just more, they're showing you really a lot of the disaster, whereas this, like you said, touches home. Now, let's start with Hard Knocks. Now, this is season 2, right? So it's the Raiders' last season, right? It's season 2.
Of Hard Knocks?
Yeah.
No, there's been multiple seasons.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Okay.
They might be on 5 or 6.
I don't know. Last year was the Browns. Obviously, I haven't watched. I didn't watch last year with the Browns, okay?
Me neither.
I have, as we all know, Clemson fan. They drafted 3 of our guys. So, and John Gruden is a hell of a character, okay? Yep. He still is. It's great stuff. It's great stuff. He without him, that's why, I'm not disappointed I didn't see last season's, because, though I don't know the personalities of those coaches as well as Gruden, they might not have been in the limelight like he has.
Right.
He is just such a character.
And I may blow your mind a little bit here. It looks like we're on season 14.
Holy crow. Yes, I sound like a buffoon.
Well,
obviously it has.
You gotta want to pay for HBO for that.
Well, yeah, that too. that too. And we just got this HBO Now or something, whatever. So, because
Unless you want to watch the Marvel movies 1,000 times, some of these pay channels are a little rough to watch unless there's something on there that draws you. And they're expensive.
we can get into a whole nother story about that with the Hulu and the ACC network and the NFL network and the Red Zone and who's got it, who doesn't, what the hell's going on.
Yep.
But let's stay on task. So, Hard Knocks, yes. So, it's, today's episode, really is, I think, the first time you got a good look at Antonio Brown with all the preseason nonsense going on. Like, he was there, they showed him not on the field, but, with the family and with, his age, this, that, and the other. But today he was out there and, with everything that you've been hearing, maybe if you obviously are listening to this, you probably follow it, that with the cryo and his feet getting jacked up and the helmet issue. Today was the episode yesterday, the one we watched today, that kind of brings all that to light.
Yep.
So, interesting in the sense that, at the end of the episode when he was standing there with Gruden and it was like, the sincerity that truly, I did see some sincerity of him saying, I appreciate you having my back, coach, on the whole foot thing and the whole helmet thing. But then they wrapped the episode with him, we thought the helmet issue we might be there. We're all good. We were finally able to move forward after all this, but no.
Well, I think something that was interesting about the show, and this is kind of where I got a little feeling of the rose-colored glasses. There was a lot of segments or sound bites that were showing this in a, hey, we got your back kind of mentality. What was interesting to me is the most quote unquote controversial or maybe frustrating moment was a moment that was done to the reporters, which was Mayock going to the reporters saying, you're in, it's at this time, you're in or you're out.
Yeah, all in or not.
Which I think about this like any family. What goes on inside the dynamic of a family is seldom broadcast outside. So I'm not buying everybody's happy with it. But again, this goes to show you in the NFL, all people are not equal. And it's why do quarterbacks get $40 million a year and what are their expectations? And let's just say that Antonio Brown is in some ways playing the stereotypical NFL receiver of the past, which is it's a me game. And we've got multiple examples of this. In fact, I saw an article written this morning, I saw it this morning, about how Antonio Brown may be costing himself the Hall of Fame based off the Terrell Owens concept. So
yeah,
the point is that this type of mentality has existed. And the thing is, if they show that there is discontent in the family, that's the kind of stuff that tears teams apart. And it's amazing because, a year finishes or a coach leaves or a big player leaves and you hear all the past history starts flooding out to the media after the fact. So that's why I kind of believe that's a little bit of a rose color.
Yeah.
What I do like.
It is HBO.
Yes.
And the
NFL has control.
And you just said we're in season 14. So they've, definitely tuned it up the way they want.
Right. This is not in any way, the NFL is not going to allow this to play out in a bad light because the bigger problem would be, think about it, they've got a CBA coming up, I think, in 2021.
Yes.
If the players are meant to look bad in this, then the problem is going to be how you're going to sell that. And this, let's be honest, this is a revenue generator. That's what this is. That's why teams are forced to do this because so many of them reject it. That's why you've never seen, as far as I understand, you've never seen in this show, once they put those parameters in for what qualifies you to be in that pool. And once you're in that pool, part of their agreement with the NFL is that they can pick the team. So that's why you never see a playoff team agree to do it. They just, because it is a distraction. Coaches definitely think this is a distraction. Because again, let's even use it. And we'll go back to this when we talk about it more in depth, but looking at, the Last Chance U, you had both coaches that were in that come back after their first years on it saying, man, I really didn't like the way I looked. Yeah. So,
and
cameras are on.
I think that the first 2 seasons at East Mississippi Community College in Last Chance U, after that coach said it year 1, you did see him make an effort in year 2. Now, it eventually unraveled, and
Yep.
he let himself go, but he may never. Whereas opposed to the independents, it is what it is. You know,
Yeah.
Coach Brown was Coach Brown, and that's the way he was going to be.
Yeah, to me, like what I like about Hard Knocks in watching it, and again, I'll admit, this is not my first time watching the show. It's my first time really watching a season because, again, I'm not a huge reality person. There was some, and I think this is some of the stuff we can talk about. There's some really good stories, and to me, what the intriguing part of it is, and this is kind of what intrigues me about Last Chance U, is the fringe players. The players that what they've given up, what they're doing to become better. And they had a fantastic little segment on the tight end, Darren Waller, which I'll let you touch upon, but it was neat. And the guy was real. And most importantly, he was humble. It was a very likable situation and a guy now I've never heard of that I'd cheer for.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the Waller situation, it's funny because this episode really, they got on, they made a point of it. They said they had 6 tight ends
Yep.
that were currently on the roster, and there's only room for 4.
Yep.
Okay. So they brought Waller over, who was in Baltimore with the Ravens. They drafted him, a couple years ago? 2-3
Yep.
years
Yep.
ago. And I think he had said he was injured for a piece, but then he also had drug issues.
Yep.
And dude was giving up.
Yep.
He's
Admitting that he was actually trying to give up to have it not be
Right.
on him.
He was trying to kill himself without actually killing himself.
Yep.
He was trying to be forced out. Okay, you're in this job, you can't stand this job, or the people you work for, but you don't want to resign and forego potentially collecting a little bit of unemployment till you find something else, or forego any kind of severance package that you may get. You'd rather them kick you out and you get the benefits of all that, so to speak.
Yep.
So, but man, I tell you, the kid was well spoken. He was making plays. They had the defense. They asked him, it was the Madden guys, I think, were asking the D-backs, who do you not want to go against? Who's underrated that we don't know about? And they said Waller. And
While they
showed-
were all complaining about their ratings.
Yes, while they were all. I thought that was kind of funny. And I actually liked that. Like, they had that one big guy that was there for them. And he was just like, "Oh, really?" He wasn't afraid of him. He's like,
Yep.
"Oh yeah, well, you ain't
Tell me
showing
why."
Yeah, show me something.
Yep.
But then they actually brought Waller on the mic after that, and then they're like, "Your buddy said you're the guy that's the most underrated."
Yeah, and what it was interesting about it too is, they told him his thing was a 68, I think is what he was, which
Yeah.
is pretty low for Madden, but but he
I
said
don't play anymore. Too many buttons.
he said real simply, he goes, "That sounds about right." He goes, you don't have a lot of film on me and I didn't do a lot of good things. I got a lot to prove. So that humility of him came across, and again, his ownership of his own, certainly he's got some demons that he had to fight off, but just the fact that he's very self-aware. And for us as fans, I think what we always are looking for is we want to see in our players the humanity that we have to feel in life in some ways. And so it's, whether it's inspirational because someone has a drug problem, or whether it's just like, hey, somebody that's just self-aware and realizing that all of us would give a lot for that opportunity. It's neat to see. So I was very impressed.
yeah.
And not only that, like, let's just say it, he's talented and he's getting some hype now.
Well,
out
I mean,
there.
you got Jared Cook's gone now. You've got, when I was watching him, he seemed to be a pretty good pass blocker too. I mean, he was he caught the ball.
Right.
That's what they were showing a lot of highlights of. And also keep in mind, you started this out talking about it. Like, Hard Knocks isn't the train wreck Last Chance U is, okay? Now, not that they won't take their opportunities to put some, like, controversial situations for people to be entertained, but that said, we don't know that we're not just seeing, like, that, out of, 50 plays that he was out snaps during practice that week that we just saw the 3 he caught and he didn't drop a whole bunch of others. So, but that said, then they move on to Luke Wilson, who's been there. Again, Jared Cook gone, now in New Orleans with the Saints, which we could talk about that at a later time. Maybe that'll, we'll see. Still trying to rekindle those Jimmy Graham years with the tight end in New Orleans is basically what it is. But,
and the tight end position is changing. As,
Yeah.
20
Luke
years ago, it was
Wilson's-
an inline blocker that caught the occasional, 5-yard out or, stood underneath.
Dump pass.
Yeah, your running backs are taking more of those plays, and now you're seeing these guys do it. But yet there is still a need for the blocking tight end, and I think that's kind of what goes into the Luke Wilson comments. And this is a guy fighting for a position. And what's really interesting about him is they got this guy out on a boat, and this guy's from Canada. Stats talking about hockey. I mean, football is probably in Canadian minds the comparable to hockey. There, like most people don't
What's
understand
that poutine stuff all about, eh?
And here is a kid that literally the first thing we looked at him, we go, wow, look at this dude. He is a unique looking guy.
What did I say you look like?
Well, the dad said he looked like a Hanson, which is almost to a T from
pretty good
from Slapshot. That's a pretty good call. And then he started making fun of his calves.
And that's for you millennials. That's not Hanson the band, which millennials may not even know them.
Yes, that's actually.
Just go watch the movie Slapshot.
Paul Newman. Yes, it's a fantastic movie, and as a former hockey
The
player,
Goons.
love it.
The Goons.
Love it. So
sorry.
It was a good, showing these guys and how they play together. And and it's interesting, some of the camaraderie that these guys have, and they're the stars of the show in my mind, but they're not the stars of the team. The AB is almost like the clickbait to me. The storylines all say this show should be all about AB, and let's be honest, was probably half of the show is consisted of the AB saga, but nothing really came out. Yeah, nothing.
This episode, they sprinkled him in, like I said in priors, but this episode,
yeah, but they didn't. The publicity is going to be off of that, and the reality is, it didn't deliver to me on what we expected, what you'd want to see, because you really want to see the reality, which is. You could tell at times Gruden was reserved because he knew he was mic'd up in some of the things that he was saying, particularly about that. And it's nice to see these other storylines that are coming in. They focus on the rookies. And again, you see guys like Wilson's been in the league, I think he said 6 years.
Well, yeah. And then you saw him, and who was the other tight end they had out there? Somebody else that I'll think of it in a second. But he was when they got the tight ends grouped at the end, he had that little saying, he was the leader.
Wilson. No, that was Wilson.
Yeah, no, there was another guy besides that. Yep. But I'm saying Wilson was the one, at the end of practice, got the tight end group together. He's obviously the leader of the group. He's the veteran of the group on the team. And I would, even with Cook there last year, I'm sure it was the same.
Yeah, and I think you'll see, the end game of it and the see you next week was all about AB coming back again and saying the helmet issue's not resolved. I look for that to not deliver again.
Okay, look, if you go to the website for Hard Knocks, right, you go to the homepage of Hard Knocks, and if you click the about right at the top, it goes right to a page, and who's staring you in the face? AB.
Yep.
Nobody else, just a headshot of AB.
So I would say this. It's a fun show if you're into the camaraderie and a little bit of the behind the scenes, of what an NFL camp looks like. It's not hard hitting drama.
No, I mean, how many episodes have we seen thus far? And granted, there's so many rules and regulations, and they don't want to get these guys hurt. But I don't think we've seen a bunch of episodes full pads of these guys. The only time I've seen them really going full out is last week's episode where they played the Rams in a scrimmage, and this week where they're playing the Cardinals at the end of it in a scrimmage. Which, by the way, my boy Klee got off and was corralling that little Kyler Murray, and
he was wreaking some havoc. That game was not good for the Cardinals. I watched some of that.
Yeah, well, and to your point, the storylines, and one of the ones that I'm going to touch on here again, Clemson guy, is Hunter.
Yep.
And you said it. We're watching every episode, especially this one. You're like, because Gruden's just busting his stones left and right.
Yep.
And what did you say?
I said I can tell he loves them because he was so willing to grind on them, and you wouldn't want to ruin a rookie's confidence. But I can tell you, behind the scenes, that guy is so excited for having him play on his team and knows the dimension he's going to bring. And you know what? The kid sits there and he takes it. He was a walk-on. You can speak more to this than I can, but he was a walk-on. So this kid's fought every step of the way, and he isn't going to be pushed around.
Look, Clemson, especially as of late, has been notorious for having these little white guy slot receivers, a la Julian Edelman, Danny Amendola, whoever. Okay.
Well, the reason-
Adam Humphries was one of our receivers.
Well, that's part of the
who
reason
people
why
don't
everybody
know.
thinks Renfro's played forever because they confuse him
Right.
and Humphries.
And he has a receding hairline, looks like the kid that bags your groceries at
Yep.
Publix. But let me tell you something. This kid was Dabo. Dabo walked on to Alabama and earned his
Yep.
spot. Okay, so that's why Dabo allowed him an opportunity to walk on, and he allowed him an opportunity to play on the team without scholarship at the beginning.
Yep.
And I'll try to find the video of where they actually give him the scholarship in a meeting with the team, and it's great.
Yep.
But the kid, he runs you could put him up there with some of the best in the game. He knows he's not this big guy. He knows he's not super athletic. Great hands, precise, crisp, great routes. Okay, knows how to find the open spot. Great coming off the ball and making moves on guys and juking them out. And he's humble. You know,
Yep.
the most arrogant NFL players are usually the wide receivers.
Yep.
He's a humble kid. So, and one of the things I do want to say, especially on this podcast, is if you get a chance, and I will post it, our Facebook page is up since yesterday.
Facebook.
You can go look us up, Facebook, Gridiron 360, the website, gridiron360.com. You could search us on YouTube and iTunes. The YouTube channel's up. Our podcasts are all over there. Most of the stuff from the website will link over to both. And I'll see if I can share this on our Facebook because I know I have it from a while ago. But
Yep.
back when we were about to play Alabama the first time in Arizona in the national title, the one we lost, well, no, I take that back. I think it was the second year we played him when we won, when he caught the winning touchdown. Prior to the national championship, there was a segment put out about him. It's called Big Game Hunter, and it's like 11 minutes, but I'll share it out there on the Facebook, maybe see if I can post it a few other places. It is awesome. Everything you need to know about this kid is right there.
Yep.
He's just a humble kid. And for your average guy, you like to see that. We love the superstars. Look, again, I'm a Giants fan, and how upset I was that we got rid of Odell Beckham Jr. He's exciting. He's a lot of baggage, but he's exciting. We love that. But you love this too. It's rooting for the underdog.
Yeah, and it's kind of the everyman. I mean, they put up a picture of his body. I think that was a little bit of photoshopped. I hope so.
Yeah. Oh, he probably either that or it was from like high school.
Yeah, but
Because he looks the same.
the thing about this is a true slot receiver and how like Welker and Edelman made their bones was phenomenal hands, but above all else, so tough mentally, so tough. I
know
mean,
how to take a hit.
when you think about the speed that is happening in the slot area now with,
Yeah.
I mean, linebackers have gone beyond the safeties of yesteryear and are now more like corners in speed, and
The
they're
safeties
massive.
are
And
a
you're getting
little everything.
and you're getting
you get a
popped.
linebacker corner right in one.
And this kid, you see some highlights, and they're good highlights, but the truth is, as somebody that watched him torch us at Florida State many a time, you could never question his toughness, and the kid just knows how to get open and knows how to catch the ball. And that's plain and simple.
And
And
you
in the
drop-
NFL, so that's the lunch pail mentality.
Yeah.
That again, I think it brings us back to the idea that we all like to identify, and that's what makes this show fun to me. It's less the drama with the AB. I don't need the real world / Kardashians in my football, but it's the good stories of guys like this. And
That
man,
and a little Frank Caliendo doing some
that was
impressions.
fantastic.
Great with Frank today.
Because
today's
Gruden
episode.
likes to needle people, so it's nice to see Gruden get a little needled himself.
No, it was fantastic. it was a good laugh. But yeah, I mean, you really said it all about Hunter, especially as a Florida State fan.
Yeah,
but
he's good.
at the same token, and just on top of that, I was interjecting. I mean, he knows how to take a hit too. He's a little guy, man. His body is not what you saw in that picture. Yep. But even if it is, he's got muscle on him. You can see he's not
Yep.
roided out like lats,
Yep.
up to here or anything like that. And this is a tough league, and so is college, D1 college, and at the level we played at, the kid knows how to take a hit.
Yep.
He can feel it coming, and he knows how to take a hit, get down. And he's not a kid that'll fall. He's got room. He's got great feet, and he's quick. He'll make a move and go. But if he knows he's going to get drilled because he's a slot receiver, he knows how to take a hit.
And he will. Here's the kind of guy. I'll give a guy that's I think got. I guess I'd say more talent or has a function to his game that Hunter doesn't have, but very similar. Is a Tariq Cohen. As a Bears fan, people love Tariq Cohen.
Little guy.
He's the littlest guy in the NFL, and he is fearless. And this is a guy, they run a lot of gadget with him, and in a similarity given the Nagy to Reed, he runs a little bit like Hill, Tyreek Hill, in the sense like he's kind of all over the field. But this is a kid that'll run up the middle with no fear, and that's something that I think people like to watch. We like to watch, as you said, I think the underdog, and Hunter Renfro's that guy. And the thing about those types of players is they're going to win you games. And that's huge. They are going to win
Dude won
you
the national
games.
I mean, you see that last play where he caught the touchdown from Deshaun. And look, Deshaun's great, and we had Mike Williams. We had a great team. We had weapons everywhere. He made multiple plays that game, and not just that game, all year. Okay, you're talking about everybody for the 10 years he was a Clemson Tiger.
Yep.
Everybody knew when it was 3rd and 5 to 3rd and 10, somewhere in between that range, where the ball was going. We knew it. Our team knew it. Our fans knew it. The announcer knew it. The opposing team knew it. The opposing team coaches knew it. The opposing team fans knew it. The opposing team announcers knew it.
And he did it.
And he still did it.
Yep. Yeah.
So that's something, man.
So if you're into those types of stories, like I definitely, it's a show certainly worth watching. Again, I have not watched the past seasons to sit here and tell you that that's been what I've seen. I saw some of the Tampa one that was 2 years ago, I believe, or 3 years ago, because I think it was the Rams, then it was the Browns, and then this. But and I think I watched some of that too, related to Winston. I don't know if that was his first year or his second year. And that's a player. We won't get into that, but that's been some disappointment as a Florida State fan. But you watch some of those storylines, but the truth is it's good stories about guys that are working hard, and these are the guys that are not going to get rich off this game. If they do something afterwards, because they're smart and they're engaged, whether it's in the sport or in something else, and I'm not saying they can't do that, but they're not going to get rich off of playing the game. Some of these guys are never going to see a 7-figure or 8-figure salary like some of these other guys are seeing. So it was pretty cool. It was pretty cool. So you got that's what I take from the dynamic of the 3 episodes I've seen from Hard Knocks.
How many episodes do they have? Do you know?
I can look back at what the last season was. My guess would be HBO, maybe.
I don't know.
Maybe 10.
It just lists the
maybe less.
Yeah.
Because I can't remember if this goes past training camp. If it doesn't go past training camp, I got to say we're probably 5 or 6. Yeah, then we're probably 5 or 6.
You hear they're looking
or at least
at
preseason.
You know who they're looking at next year? I think it's a done deal.
Who's that?
Washington State University.
No. I don't think that's going to replace the NFL.
I don't know.
I think it's going to be another
It might
show.
be an addition too, but no. They said Hard Knocks.
No. But I'm saying it's going to be Hard Knocks, the college version versus the pro version.
I would be. Love Mike Leach.
Well,
love it.
Here is what I've seen. There was 4 teams in talk.
What I heard. Yes, go ahead.
Well, there was 4 teams in talk about this that I heard, and this is kind of a leak thing.
I didn't. Who?
I think it was the 2 Arizona teams. I think it was Arizona State. Okay. It was Washington State, and I can't remember the 4th team.
That would make sense. Herm's a guy that's been in front of the camera.
But it has been leaked out that people have seen cameras on campus at Washington State. And again, that's going to offer you a little bit different dynamic, as we've talked about in the past, the pros versus the NFL. Like in college, your character. Now, granted, this is a season where Gruden is a part of the character, but the press is on Gruden's reaction to the players. The players become more of a standout of that show, whereas I could really see that focusing a little more on the coaching, which we've talked about Mike Leach and the unique person that he is. You're going to see, I think, something that's going to be a little bit different. They have to be careful. They've got different training rules. And you can see there's some protection of what they do even in the NFL. There's going to be a lot of protection about what goes on campus.
Camera that could get them in trouble, man.
Absolutely. So it's a dangerous thing. As you can see, if it was something that didn't scare them, we'd be seeing this at an Alabama or a Clemson. But they're not, and then there's going to be rules associated with it. So more to come on that. They're going to try to use this format, it looks like, and we'll see if they officially announce it. But it's definitely
If
word
you're
is
gonna
out.
do it right. If
Yeah.
you're gonna do it, take your time, do it right.
All right, we
You
lost
can
four.
do it, baby.
We lost 4 listeners right there.
Vafangula.
So
going from there, let's move right into
Sure.
the train wreck that we believe. And it's not
Yeah.
it is and it isn't. It is what it is really what it is. You're talking about junior college football
Right.
on Last Chance U.
And let's just say this right now. Spoiler alert. We've watched the whole season. It's been out for a while. It came out, the end of July, beginning of August?
Yeah, and, there are
you get
10
the whole
episodes.
season.
What is it?
Yeah,
10
episodes. Yep.
episodes, about an hour each.
Yep.
It is must watch.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, if you love football, even if you don't, and my wife doesn't watch Hard Knocks, and actually my 13-year-old watches QB1, which it's fun. I told you about
Yeah.
that today.
Yeah.
Because there is some things I want her to see, and she's about to enter high school anyway, so it's all relative there.
Yep.
But Last Chance U is something that my wife, she didn't watch the recent one. She caught a couple of, but did watch some of the first 2 seasons with East Mississippi EMCC.
Yeah.
East Mississippi Community College. And because again, the characters are different and the roles
Yeah.
being played. You have these ladies on the admin side or
Yep.
their counselors and so forth that are really a huge role. And for my wife to see that, it's a totally different thing.
Yeah. And it's you have to understand, like, it's literally what the title says. It's Last Chance U. So these are guys that, or at least the ones that probably get the most play, because they're generally the most talented, are going to be guys that have struggled at other schools, big name schools. A lot of them come from quarterbacks. The first 3 Last Chance U's had former Florida State quarterbacks
All over the place.
So you got players that, there was a good story in, I think it was season.
You kind of just you drop that and then you friggin' move on.
Well, I don't want to talk
Criminal.
about bad
I mean,
play.
let's go, baby. Criminal. I mean, like every episode.
Well,
It's like Auburn and Florida State are the farming ground for this show.
Yeah. Well, to be honest with you, I thought about this after the fact. It was, I want to say it was during the dark years, so it was a painful time, but Florida State had been recruiting a lot of, and I would almost venture to say maybe the idea came out of this, where we were pulling in top 5 classes full of guys that can't qualify. So by the time our class actually got in as freshmen, it was probably 2/3 of what it had been, and most of the guys didn't make it in. And during that time, Terry Bowden had gotten a chance. I hope I'm right on this, because I believe it was Terry Bowden got a chance to go to North Alabama, and all of a sudden,
Was it North Alabama?
yeah, I think it was North Alabama. I'll have to look it up. But we started feeding. Literally, all of our players that couldn't qualify would go there. None of them made it back. I can't think of one
I got
person.
someone for you.
Right. So and so it is. Now you have to understand the dynamic of what comes through here.
I rescind that. Son, I've got someone for you.
Yeah. Yes. He gets straight D's. He's rock.
He's awesome.
So
Smart guy.
So you've seen that this has been happening for a long time, but without the publicity to it. And the Florida State quarterbacks, you got kind of a spectrum here. The first season was DeAndre Johnson, or was it Franklin?
It was Franklin.
Okay,
Franklin was first,
Yeah.
and then Johnson, and then the past 2 seasons at Independence in Kansas, it was Malik.
Yeah, and you had
A season and a half.
Yeah, you had 3 different dynamics, and I can kind of explain the dynamics of those
Who
quarterbacks.
is now the backup at Nevada.
Yes, he did not make it. And now you've got John Franklin came in. He was an undersized. He was not our top level recruit. Guy is massively fast. He's actually battling it out for a spot at cornerback for the Bears. But he was just never going to get his shot. I mean, he was sitting behind Jameis and Jacob Coker, who you may remember was always sitting behind Jameis, who ended up going to Alabama and winning a national title, with them because he, elected to get out from under. And so that happened. So you've got a guy that just couldn't, he wanted to be a quarterback. And here's a guy that went to Florida State. He went then to East
Auburn.
Mississippi. No, he went
Oh,
to
he
East
went-
Mississippi.
yeah, he went to
then
East
he went to
EMCC.
Auburn, got beat out for the quarterback job. Then he went to FAU.
Yes.
Yeah, so he
because
went
to FAU with
Kiffin.
What's his face? Yeah.
Yeah, so
'Cause he likes to do that too.
So you got a guy that just was never
take him.
he was never going to get his chance where he thought, and he felt that he was not getting an opportunity, and he got his opportunity in Auburn, lost the quarterback job and against not strong competition, at least from an NFL standpoint, and eventually changed his position. Then you go to DeAndre Johnson. DeAndre Johnson was recruited the same year as DeAndre Francois. Our DeAndres were not very good for the health of our program. Before his, I think it was the summer after his redshirt year. I don't think it was his freshman year, but maybe it was. He got caught on camera cold cocking a girl.
Yep.
It was on
Oh,
camera at a bar. He
God.
punched her
It
right in the
is-
face.
I
It wasn't a
mean,
good look.
Bad look.
So here's a kid that had to go and rebuild his reputation. Then you've got the Malik Henry, who is a 5-star quarterback. Malik Henry was the heir apparent in everybody's mind to Jameis Winston. We heard all about this kid. He redshirted his first year, and then he was gone. And nobody could quite figure out what had happened because, the press didn't come out. But then you lead to season 3 of Last Chance U, and you see what the problems were.
Yeah. Oh.
I mean,
Just-
you could look at it a couple different ways. My opinion
Little
is,
rich kid. I mean, at the end of the day, the kid, he had a horrible attitude.
yeah, he was.
Horrible
But
attitude.
I also was never quite sure that kid really wanted to play football.
I didn't feel like he did ever.
I
Even when
felt
they
like
were
it was more
talking
his dad.
about, like, they give a little bit of background on him, before, even before Florida State to kind of let you know who he is. And it just seems like he might have been one of those kids. Seemed like he might have come from a little bit of money at least. I don't know if he loaded or not. But, it looked like it was a situation where the parents, the father in particular, was, very supportive. I don't know if you want to say driving factor. Maybe he was because he wanted it, but at some point it seems like the kid just doesn't want to play anymore. Now, does he flat out say it, or at one point, if his parents were driving him his whole life, does he stop and say thank you, but no thanks, I'm done? And instead he just looks like he's doing it not for himself. That's he's just going through the motions.
Well, that kind of shows, and we'll move into the current season, but this is just to give you an idea if you haven't watched, which most of you probably have if you're listening to this, but it shows you the dynamic of the types of players that come in. You got kids with criminal backgrounds or sketchy background paths. You got kids that cannot make the grade because they've been pushed along.
Well, shoot, the motivational, they just are not motivated enough. A great crossover on this cast today. The first episode of Hard Knocks, Ronald Ollie was the defensive tackle that got picked up as an undrafted free agent, and they spend some time with him. Brenton Buckner, former Clemson Tiger defensive lineman, is the D-line coach for the Raiders, and he flat out says, now Ollie was in season 1, he was at East Mississippi.
I think he was in season 1.
Okay, I think it was season 1. It might have been 2, but the first 2 are East Mississippi.
And he was definitely looked at as their best player from a standpoint of
But
potential.
had no fire about him.
No.
He just was like, it was almost like, look, I'm this big guy. I know it. I can do this just by throwing my weight down. But again, it's motivation. He's not very coachable. And then, fast forward here, what is it, 3-4 years? Holy crow. He ended up going from EMCC to play at Nicholls State. So I think they're D2.
Yep.
But still got recognized. Obviously gets picked up this past season as an undrafted free agent. And you see flat out in one of the rooms, Brenton Buckner saying, listen, man, you
got a rep.
You've got a rep. Unfortunately, you've got a ton of baggage coming in. A lot of people do, but you've got a little bit extra. People know you for being kind of this lazy, uncoachable, non-motivating, bad attitude type of kid. Could have all the talent and the potential in the world. Let's face it. He's, not that all D tackles are ripped to the gills, but he just kind of looks like a fat body.
He does.
But he seems to have some, on some of the games that he played that they showed
When his
on
motor's
EMC,
on, he could play.
He could play, man. He was not a bad D tackle. Like Grady Jarrett from Clemson that got drafted by the Falcons a few years ago in the 5th, 6th round, best pick of the draft. I mean, the guy, not a big guy, but he used his leverage and his quickness
And a motor.
to give a motor to give a different dynamic to the D tackle position. Okay?
Yeah, and it kind of like, just because we do want to move into this season, but I will say this is because this is an important thing to understand kind of what you're watching. What you saw with this character, and that's a really good point to watch of the progression showing from show to show. Ollie, the best person in any of these shows was, and I forget her name, but the administrator for East Mississippi College.
Yeah.
She was the star of the show in my mind, more so than the coaches. She was excellent,
and she's actually gone on to do some great things. She left there after those 2 seasons. And I think she was looking to go to another school. I think she even might have got. They were talking about.
She does personal consulting.
Now
and stuff
she's
like that.
because of the show, it vaulted her.
But she was a very real person.
And she was so great with these kids,
Yeah,
and was honest, cared about them, but was also very honest.
Absolutely. And what you saw was he was the big fish in a small pond on that show. And they did everything to get him eligible. I mean, her trying to get him to retake tests. I mean, that was a constant show. And he wasn't a bad attitude. He was not motivated, but he seemed like a genuinely nice kid, and she would just try to keep him motivated on his grades, telling him, if you want to go do this in the future, you've got to do this through the college process, which means you have to get your education, you have to work hard. And so he was the football star of that show, I would say, the player star of that show, at least one of the few.
Yeah,
and
they usually have a lot. I mean, this is Juco. There are a lot of big, but every episode of this show, there's certain guys they focus on either because
talent or
they won't be there by the end of the season.
Or storyline. So what's interesting was you see him. He's the big fish in the small pond, and they do everything to prop him up. Now let's flash forward. So this kid goes and gets there, and then now he's at Raiders camp. There was probably about a segment and a half that he was involved in, and the first segment was what Bill was talking about with him talking to the D-line coach and telling him, you really need to up your game and all this stuff. And then the interesting part was it was the next segment, and they said, hey, can you play on your foot? And he just was like, nah, I'm going to take it off. And they literally show Gruden say, if this kid can't play, we're going to get somebody in here. And they show you removing his jersey from the locker and giving it to a new guy. Yeah, so that's the NFL saying, we're not going to coddle you. You're in or you're out. So he was out.
To your point, like you see the progression or lack thereof, because he really was ended up being the same guy, just had a gold grill in his mouth.
Yeah.
Okay, so he tried to pull. What I'm trying to say is he kind of tried to pull some stuff he pulled at Last Chance U where he got away with, like these owies or this, that, and the other, that lazy behavior. And in the NFL, there's a bunch of guys chomping at the bit to get your job, so you can't do that.
And they took it.
See ya.
So that's kind of talking about it overall, but then getting into this season and the season prior to this.
Brittany Wagner.
Thank you, Brittany Wagner. She was awesome. So now we move on. That was your East Mississippi, and they moved on to Independence, which is in Kansas, which is really, it seems like it in the research we've done on this, because we really enjoyed the show, is that Kansas is really the big time area for multiple JUCO college programs.
Yeah, it's the Jayhawk Conference. The conference that East Mississippi is in is a different one. I can't remember what it is. I'll have to look it up. And there's some good teams in that. I think more on the rise as of late, but we know a friend, Justin Hicks, who actually played at Coffeyville, which is a community college, and that's in the Jayhawk Conference, and he said, historically, that's the strongest conference. That's the SEC, so to speak, of JUCO.
So they bring you to this new, and the new main character is going to be the coach on this, Jason Brown. And Jason Brown has had a lot of press, and he's no longer there. This is the last season with him. Now, he's a hard-nosed coach, a lot of foul language. He talks about his background. He was a white kid growing up in Compton and played football out there. He had some opportunities, and he failed at some of his opportunities
he
too.
got
as well.
drafted. He went to or I don't know if he got drafted, but he got picked up. There's a point where they show at the beginning he was a West Coast team.
Yeah, so
like the Cardinals or something.
But he is he's pretty hardcore. I mean, and
the reason he's bought in. I mean this. And as every episode, if you don't know, which hopefully you, like Dave said, if you're listening, most of these community colleges reside in very small, possibly
a lot of middle America.
Middle America towns where the economy is taking a turn for the worse.
Yep.
So You know, and it's all a part of a conversation we might want to
Yeah.
bring up at a later date. But you know, they also bring in the people in the town. You see mixed views on, you know, because these kids are not from the state of Kansas being brought in here yet. You know, they're not on scholarship.
Yep.
Okay, now it's not super expensive now, but they're not on scholarship, so they're actually paying to go to the school or getting financial aid, I assume, of some sort, which is putting money back into the economy of this town.
Yeah.
So you see these mixed views of people, you know, and then obviously the show and the notoriety that the show brings if their school's on it, you know, and everything that it's done for, you know, the press for the town. So it's really an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, and it is to show you, like, you see a kid that came from, and it's, I talked about with Bill offline a few times about the clashing of the culture of these kids, because you're bringing in kids, and we won't get into all the depth of it, but there used to be a requirement to have, you couldn't bring in only so many out-of-state kids. They got rid of that requirement, but now apparently they're going back, but it's a much larger sampling.
Right,
Can
they're
now
giving them
be
a larger pool to
can come from out of state. So you've got these kids coming from well, the one kid, Bobby Brown, came from Baltimore, I think,
Yep.
was on there in the show, and he's got some personal background
You
struggles.
got kids coming from Southern California.
Yeah,
You got
yeah,
kids coming
everywhere.
out of Texas,
and
Louisiana.
obviously these big schools. And he started to what he did to change that program quickly was he started a level of recruiting, and he's, you know, statistically, he was exceptional at putting kids back into college. He did more than anybody else during the 2 years he was
Yeah.
there, or 3 years he was there.
Again, this show is more on the train wreck, is more on the
Yeah.
disaster. So not that I don't think the guy is who he is.
Yep.
I think he was, you know, and that's really where I was going before when I got into the town, because he was in the last 2 seasons. You know, the townspeople had opinions about him. He put himself in the public eye by doing some bad things, especially as of late.
But he won in the first season, which would have been
Correct.
last season, and so therefore there was a lot of tolerance for them. This year, did they even go 500? I know they lost. No, they didn't. They were under 500.
But, you know, and at the end of the day, the guy was brought in. Okay, season 1 was his first year as the head coach because he could relate to these kids.
Yep. And you could tell they did, because even at the end of the show, again, spoiler alert, it doesn't happen during the season, but they cut in to this being the end of the show, since it's from technically last football season. He was let go. There was an issue with a German player and a comment about "I'm your new Hitler," and it was on a text, and it got out. Now he's actually, after that, facing charges because he did a cease and desist and impersonated a lawyer. Apparently,
yeah.
that's
he
the allegation.
He wrote a letter. I'm sure it was some press
So he's
writing
got
some bad
felonies.
thing about him, and
Yep. It was
he's a
two-
fiery guy. So he's a guy that, like, it doesn't surprise you that he
Right.
wouldn't let that
Right.
go
So there's-
unsettled.
There's chaos surrounding this, but it's an interesting look, and you're thinking about some of these kids getting all the way to the pro game and that clash of culture. You think about, you get in the NFL, we just talked about Hard Knocks. You had a guy from Canada. You got people that go play in the Canadian Football League that come from a different mentality. You got guys that play at premier D1 schools like Clemson and Alabama, and then you've got guys like this that potentially get in, and the cultures just keep changing on them around
Yeah,
football.
it's
And
tough.
this shows you polar opposites of the spectrum
Oh.
of, you know, from the college football pool, whether it's you fell from grace or could never even get yourself to
Or
grace.
you were great in high school and were able
Yeah.
to, you know, get through, but you're great. You know, let's not beat around the bush. You're kind of a dummy. Okay,
Yep.
so you know you're there to get the grades up. So. And yeah, I mean, I just think, you know, and with, you know, they show the worst of the guy. I'm not saying he's not, but you know, you look at it, they're going to show you the worst of the guy.
They're trying to make you interested
They
in football
want you
that's
to
not
feel
interesting.
some type of way.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay. They
yeah.
want you to. Okay. Because even villains we're intrigued by.
Yeah.
And so they definitely want you to feel some type of way about him. Now, you know, I'm sure he is. Again, he is who he is. But I'm sure there were times that, like, the way you see it, it's 24/7 with him, like, on a
Yeah.
tear. I'm sure it's not like that in reality. So let's kind of round this discussion going into QB1, backing ourselves down to the high school level.
And a little less of a spoiler alert. You've watched how many episodes?
I've
This
watched
came out
4,
last week.
so of season 3. Now, in season 1, we had now QB1 Beyond the Lights. So if you don't watch it, you should. It's a great show. It's on Netflix now. I originally saw it on a Facebook post. There was some like random app, like 360 or something, that you could only watch it on, and Netflix bought it out. Peter Berg actually
Yep, I know
is the guy who produces the show.
Yeah, that's right.
He's the
That's
producer
right.
of the show. Peter Berg, what,
Several
late
movies.
80s, 90s actor, never like always a lead role, kind of like a supporter.
Yep.
He actually directs movies now.
And does some big
and
stuff.
does some really good stuff. So you can tell by the quality of QB1. I mean, it is a different quality. I think it's a better quality almost than Last Chance U. Because Last Chance U is very raw. To me, but great show. So they just launched season 3, and QB1 takes a look at 3 quarterbacks around the country, usually going into their senior season. I think all of them, most of them, yes,
Being recruited by D1, not necessarily all big time schools.
Yes,
but all D1.
Right. So in season 1, we have Jake Fromm down in South Georgia, who obviously is the Georgia quarterback and at the time had committed. You also have Tate Martell, who was playing for
Vegas.
the school in Vegas. He's a rich kid. Every episode you kind of have like the kid who you're like, I like him. He's got good values, good family, seems like a good kid, humble. Then you have the arrogant kid. It's usually the 5, like the highest rated of all of them on the show. Then you have like just kind of tweener, like
and the hard worker trying to get into school.
It probably comes from a less than spectacular home life or background than the other 2 in the show.
Yep.
Okay, so Tate Martell was the second one, and obviously he went to Ohio State. You could tell from the first episode the arrogance of this kid, so it does not surprise me when he transferred to Miami. And for those who don't know, lost the job to a freshman thus far. Hasn't said he's transferring again yet.
He's going to play wide receiver.
But he said he might play wide receiver. Wouldn't be surprised if Kiffin reach out down.
Yeah,
further,
and understand
right across the line.
prior to that, or I don't know if it was prior to the show, because I did a little catch up on that season 1, but. This is also the kid when Justin Fields was transferring to Ohio State, sent a tweet out or something, Facebook, I don't know where it was at, but something to the effect of, we already have a 5-star quarterback here.
Right.
And then Justin Fields came, and that's when he went to Miami.
And bye-bye. So, but you could see it coming. This show is great, especially for college football fans. And then they had the Tavion Bowers kid who went to
Wake.
the Bishop Gorman or whatever, the Catholic
No,
school.
Gorman was where I believe Tate went.
Yeah, that's right. He went to like some other Catholic school in like Pennsylvania or whatever. He went to Wake, and apparently is
Allentown or like something like that, somewhere in that area.
Right.
Or no, maybe not Allentown, maybe Harrisburg, something like that.
Something like that. So season 2 comes, and you get Justin Fields. And it's great because the season before you see Jake Fromm, and that was, I think, Fromm's freshman year. He did great, and you like the kid. He's the kid you're in season 1. You're like, oh, great values. He's a good kid, and you see it on the field. It's translated on the field. Hard worker. Yep. And so here comes Fields. Not as arrogant as Tate Martell, but he is the role that in season 2.
He was
of
the
that
it kid. You knew he was the it kid. You knew he was the high recruit.
Right.
Which everyone remember it was him and Trevor
Obviously,
Lawrence.
he's at Ohio State. They just announced, I think he's got the starting job, but he transferred there, and it was still up in the air. And who knows how much of a leash he'll have. Then in the second guy in season 2 is Sam Hartman, the kid that transferred in high school. His coach got a job as a head coach of this like second-year football program in Hilton Head or Myrtle Beach. And so Sam was the quarterback of the team wherever he was, transferred with the coach. The team hadn't won a game, and I think they went on maybe even, I don't know if they ended up winning their conference, but they did well that season. He is now at Wake Forest. Actually have seen him play. He got hurt at the end of last year.
He was their starter.
Not bad. He was the tweener in the season. Like, you like him. You feel he was the guy you felt for. He was the one you felt for.
Yeah, he transferred with his mom.
Good kid.
Just
not a big kid, not a loudmouth. Tried to lead these young. Some of those kids looked young on that new team, right?
Yep.
So he's at Wake, and then the third kid is the Real Mitchell kid who played out in Southern Cali at like Long Beach Poly or one of those good schools down there, and is at Iowa State now, but. You see mid-season of season 2, him, just crapping the bed in the game. They pull him, and they put in freshman DJ Uyunglele, the number 1 recruit in the country going to my Clemson Tigers.
Yep.
And I could tell you when you see that freshman year, you're like, wow, that's for a freshman, that kid is big. He is big, and he's good considering he's a freshman. I mean,
Yeah.
consider he's got to stay 4 years. So, so then now here we are in season 3. Season 3, your villain, the 5-star recruit, the number 1 quarterback recruit that went to Oklahoma this past year, Spencer Rattler out of Phoenix, Arizona. The kid you feel for, even though he's a little, well, I don't know. The kid you probably feel for, maybe you got kind of two. I like the Lance Lejeune kid. He's the one that's the less fortunate of the 3.
Yeah.
He's out of New Orleans.
Bad area, New Orleans.
He was committed to Kentucky,
Kansas.
or to Kansas. I'm sorry. And he says, I think in like episode 2 or 3, he had gotten hurt the previous season, and they were the first one to offer him, and he didn't,
He stuck with him.
He stuck with him because he didn't know where things would land. And now that he's back recovered and on the field, he's starting to get more
open to his recruitment.
Yeah, more letters of recruitment from colleges. Spoiler alert:
he doesn't go there.
Right. I think it was. Did you see 3? It's 3
No.
or 4. They show him writing a letter decommitting to Kansas. Now, it might not be a spoiler alert because we know where they are right now.
Yeah.
Right? So, Where is he?
He went to Maryland.
He went to Maryland. That's right. I have it written right here. He ended up going to Maryland. Okay, and then your third kid is Nick Scalzo down in Miami, who is at Kentucky.
Yep.
And that's why I say he might be the one you feel for, just because he seems like just an average kid. He's not big. He's in South Florida in Miami, so you gotta. He does have that kind of Miami mentality, but
yeah, but I would say this: there's the third quarterback to me, and these are the 2 guys that went to Wake over the first 2 seasons, and then Nick going to UK. Is these guys I think really understand that they're not looking at the NFL at this point.
Right.
They realize they're going to lower level schools of bigger conferences, but they want to play. They enjoy it, so that's their game. They're having fun with it. It's certainly going to pay for their education. They don't come across with a motive beyond going to college and doing the college thing from a college football standpoint.
whereas the 5-stars, who are essentially the villains of every show,
Yeah.
are the ones that they truly believe they're going to the NFL in their heads. And again, that's one of the great things about this show, because you do get last season much, obviously.
Yep.
It's not like Hard Knocks where they're kind of still in the process. Same with Last Chance U. So you see the outcome of some of these kids.
Yep.
You see their attitudes. You're kind of wishy-washy. A little question. Man, they've got all the talent in the world, or at least that's what the pundits say. But now, fast forward, you see what's going on. I mean, shoot, Martell and Fields haven't even started games, at the D1 level. And the Hartman kid has been playing most of the season. Fromm's been playing a couple seasons,
Yep.
And we're yet to see what this. I'm very interested in this, in what's going to happen with the Spencer Rattler kid at Oklahoma.
Yep.
Because is it going to be the same thing as Martell and Fields? Is it going to be not as easy just to step in and be the man? Because that's what they all have in their head.
Yeah, and I mean, you look at it right now, and I don't know this scenario yet, so it's going to be interesting to watch the season play out. But they just announced today that Jalen Hurts is going to be the starter, which I don't think is very surprising to anybody, but
Sure.
But is going to be the starter, and so it's like, okay, see how this young kid, who is the be all end all, sees about likely, I'm assuming, redshirting with that announcement, how he deals with that. And so what's really cool about this, and maybe I kind of want to, I don't want to wrap it up, but just kind of draw a straight line, is what's cool about QB1 having these 3 different types of personalities is, the interesting thing is, as soon as I saw that Tate Martell did not win the starting quarterback job, I sent a text to Bill and I said, next season's Last Chance U.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
it's
Where is he going?
So you can kind of see where these courses veer off into all these different directions, and then therefore it's almost like you watch the evolution from a QB1 to a Last Chance U, showing some form of the college experience, And now what would be interesting is the Hard Knocks.
The
with
Hard
Washington
Knocks
State
showing a D1
that,
school, yeah.
and then going into the NFL.
It's almost a different step,
Yeah.
but not like, keep going the same path.
Yeah, and you kind of learn, and as somebody I played, as a kid, not in college, admittedly, but I played some pretty competitive hockey. It was very funny, where I would see kids that were on a path to do that, and then all of a sudden, like I saw kids that I thought were ultra talented, and there were kids I played against that made it to the NHL that I would have been like, wow, I never would have thought it was that guy. And so you can just see how circumstance and opportunity and all that start to all align together.
I played football my whole life. I played in high school down here in Georgia. I played ball up north growing up. So, I love the game, and I still hurt if I think about it to this day, because I can remember it like yesterday, that I, in no way, shape, or form can I play the game again like that. Flag football's not going to get done, y'all. And you men like me that grew up back in the 80s and then 90s, no. Yep. Two-hand touch to me is tougher than flag football, okay? Because our two-hand touch would be a shove. But,
two-hand touch
we
to the
wouldn't
ground.
even we'd do tackle football without pads. But, I'm never going to be able to strap those pads on and do it, like, let that aggression. It was an outlet with great discipline,
Yep.
The fact of the matter is I watch the show, especially like the QB1, and it's kind of like, I can harken back, because you do see some of the backups and the other kids on the team, and you can harken back, and it is not far off in terms of, there are different coaching styles you'll see on the QB1 show. Obviously, some more level-headed than others, but there are the ones that I grew up with, the loudmouth ones. So,
and it's neat too. Is I think what I like about QB1 too is it's a lot more about the person. So therefore, there's the family interaction. It's less about always at practice kind of mentality. It's kind of seeing these kids and dealing with the fact that
grown up with them.
Yeah, like the Rattler knows that he's the man.
Well,
and
again,
that gets
spoiler
very interesting.
Spoiler alert, I told you, the episode I watched just yesterday, and like I said earlier, my 13-year-old daughter, who is a softball player, I've been having her watch it with me. And it's good because she's in 8th grade. It's good to see her because it's outside, off the field too, like I said. In the school, in the classroom, with friends, with the family, and having your villain.
Yep.
Because she's played on teams where we've had that player who is the best player in the league on our team in a rec ball, and arrogance did come with that. And seeing that, but then also having like the good kid, and then maybe having the less fortunate kid. Like she's quickly become engaged, but it's great. It's like you kind of, for a guy like me, kind of reliving those years, not like vicariously, but it's like it really gets you engaged. And then, like you said, these shows are taking like on these journeys of different levels of this thing. So it's a lot of fun. So what I'll do is I'll do my best, because I'm still, we just got the Facebook page up. I said earlier I wanted to post that thing about Big Game Hunter, but I'll also try to, somehow tag or pull in or share, Last Chance U, QB1, Hard Knocks somehow on there to link to it. Check it out. Check out their pages if you don't watch it, which I'm sure that's not the case if you're listening to this. But if you don't, check them out. Highly recommended, all three, especially, this season of Hard Knocks, because we can't speak on earlier.
Absolutely. And if there's anything else you see out there, please let us know on Facebook and that you want us to dive into, because I'm always looking for another one of the shows related to this, and we can take a look and we'll talk about it.
Yeah, there, Gridiron 360. There's a contact page. Make a comment. It goes to our Gmail, which is gridiron360@gmail. That's GRIDIRON 360. But yeah, you can send us an email, whatever. If you look, we're just getting this thing rolling. So, in reality, even though we're 11, 12, a dozen in, but love to, we want to get to the point where we're getting recommendations, bringing people in, interacting with our audience. So definitely do that. And we have more to come.